Riverbend Gardens is in the northeast corner of Edmonton, where the river bends, and the Southwest Edmonton Farmers Market is by Riverbend. So you actually can come to Riverbend to a really awesome farmers market on Wednesdays. So with that, my talk today is about revolutionizing our food system. Because when I was asked to talk about revolution, that's sort of all that I deal with is food. So that's the topic that we're all stuck with today. And so we're going to talk about reclaiming our identity as citizens to completely change our city and the food community in Edmonton. And so to start off with, I thought that I would talk about some of the problems with our food system, both locally and internationally. And these are all sorts of things that I could talk about at length for 4 hours if we wanted to, but we're just going to touch on them today. And so some issues that we're facing is environmental degradation due to agriculture. So these are things like the relatively widespread misuse of pesticides and fertilizers in agriculture, which have led to the degradation of our soils, as well as the collapse of many sort of pollinator populations, the clearing of ecologically important lands for agriculture. And a lot of people think instantly of Brazil and clearing the rainforest for cattle production, but this has happened historically in Alberta as well, as we've cleared or drained wetlands for agricultural use and not protected those lands. And then we could also talk about fossil fuel consumption in agriculture and in food production, both in the production side of things, which is where the majority of fossil fuels are used, as well as in the transportation things, which is sort of the more popular topic of all of us people that try and eat locally. So I could also talk a lot about malnutrition, both in Canada and abroad. Over 800 million people in our world don't have enough calories to eat every day to live a healthy lifestyle. And so that's a major problem that we could talk about, as well as issues more in the Western world about obesity and overweight and the social stigma surrounding that, and sort of the health implications of those as well. We can also talk extensively about ethical debates in food production, both on the animal production sides of things, so questions like, are gestational crates for cows okay to use? Should we be using battery cages for chickens? Is it okay to shoot our cattle before we eat them? And then larger questions about whether we should be eating meat at all in the Western world, where we can sort of eat everything that we need using plant-based methods. So that's another topic that we can talk about, as well as the use of genetic engineering and whether or not it's ethical to patent seeds, or whether it's ethical to block the use of this technology when it can increase yields so much without needing more land. So I'm not going to talk much more about those sorts of issues, because what I'm going to focus on today is two intersecting kind of ideas, and that's inequality in our food system and food insecurity. And this is something that, as Edmontonians, as I'm presuming most of you are from Edmonton, is a huge issue in our city and something that's prevalent as someone who's been involved in the food community relatively in depth in the past few years. So with inequality in our system, there are sort of three levels that we can talk about, and that's an inequality of power, an inequality of knowledge, and an inequality of access to food. So with an inequality of power, the majority of us don't work in agriculture. Only 3% of Canadians work in the food system and are heavily involved in sort of the food that we eat. And that creates a lot of power in the hands of people that do create our food. And so that power lies in the hands of fast food chain conglomerates, processing people, as well as the farmers that we talk to every day. And that inequality leads to a lack of our ability to really make autonomous decisions regarding the food that we eat. There's also an inequality in knowledge. And so not only is there an inequality in the knowledge of those of us that live in cities and don't make our own food, in sort of the things that go into our food, so the production methods, the wage of the laborers that harvest our food, all of those sorts of things. There's also an inequality in knowledge about food itself and how to cook food, where to find healthy food in our communities. And that's something that we need to address as a community as well. And then most importantly, that leads most directly into the discussion around food security, is an inequality in access for healthy food. So all of these foods that we think are really good, things that we sort of define as healthy food, so vegetables, organic food, even fair trade chocolate, ethically raised meats, all of these sorts of things are only accessible to those who can afford it in our community. And all of these different layers of inequality, so inequality of power, inequality of knowledge, and inequality of access, lead into food insecurity in our city. And so food security isn't necessarily about being able to grow all of our food in Edmonton and make sure that we're all able to survive the Hunger Games or whatever, if it happens to happen relatively soon. It's about a household's ability to access fresh, healthy, and varied food on a regular basis to sustain themselves. And so food insecurity is obviously the lack of the ability to do that. And as sort of relatively affluent people in Edmonton, it's very easy to overlook the fact that food insecurity is pervasive in our city, it's an issue, and it's something that we need to address as a community. Probably before we should be up in arms about how our restaurants aren't in the top 50 list of the world, in my opinion. So there are over 15,000 users of the food bank in our city monthly. 40% of those are children under the age of 18. And it's on the rise, especially with the development of the arena area, which is displacing a lot of people who are on the margins of being food insecure. We also have over 200 charitable food agencies in Alberta. So these are people like the Hope Mission and the Mustard Seed that are providing hot meals to hundreds of people 7 days a week, as well as other churches and community kitchens that provide meals on the ground to people who need it or else they'll be hungry. And also, food deserts are not sort of limited to discussions in the States and sort of inner city Washington, D.C. We have food deserts in Edmonton, and there's been research from the University of Alberta that have shown that due to our city's planning, it's not necessarily in the core, where a lot of us live, as sort of relatively affluent people. It's in the suburbs, where because of our city planning, there's a lot of distance to supermarkets. And so if you have a pocket of low-income households in that area that have poor access to transportation, they are living within a food desert and they have little access to fresh food. And sort of what I found to be, what sets it home for me as sort of an economics type of person, is the grocery bills in Edmonton are increasing dramatically. So between 2003 and 2013, this is for a family of 4, their weekly food budget, that's gone from $133 per week to $210. So that's more than twice the rate of inflation in that period as well, which means that wages aren't keeping up with that. And for the majority of us, we're like, oh, $70 a week over 10 years, that's not a big deal. But if you're living on the margins of food insecurity in the city, that makes those decisions between healthy food and rent, healthy food and clothes, or healthy food and school supplies for your kids just that much harder. And there are also issues with transsectionality and food insecurity. So on top of those inequalities that I mentioned, there's also inequalities just sort of due to our society and how we tend to oppress people. So right off the bat, Indigenous households are far more likely to be food insecure in Canada and in Edmonton. And so this is due to things such as a lack of food sovereignty and the ability to use traditional hunting and gathering methods, as well as just sort of our systematic oppression and low income levels with that group. There's also the intersection of class. So the source of income, regardless of where you get your, or sort of the level of income, so the source of your income directly relates to the level of food security that you experience. So those of us who have government checks are far more likely to be food insecure than others. And then finally, there's the gender intersection. So when women primarily bear the brunt of food insecurity in our society, and that's because we're more likely to be the ones doing the grocery shopping in a household, we're more likely to be the ones that are cooking food, using the minimal groceries that we're able to purchase, and then also women are more likely to be the head of single-parent households with children, and those households are 3 times more likely to be food insecure than others. And this is also, and there are tons of other intersections that lead to inequalities that also lead to food insecurity in our city. So things like those with disabilities not being able to have access to cheap transportation. The fact that youth, when I was 16 and living on my own, I was very food insecure because you're not able to access money when you're 16. And also seniors, so there's the age intersection as well. So now that I've talked about the problem and you're all looking sufficiently glum, we can start talking about some of the solutions. So when you first start learning about food issues, or at least when I did, the first notion and the most prevalent notion that you come across as a solution to all of these problems, not just inequality but also the environmental degradation and all of these sorts of things, is the idea of voting with your fork. And this idea is that if you buy food from good places, so if you buy local food, if you buy organic food, if you buy fair trade spinach, or fair trade chocolate, which is more likely. You are supporting those practices, and you're going to make the biggest change that you can in your food system, just by spending your money. So not only are you supporting those practices, but especially if you buy local, that money is going to stay in the local economy, and it's going to circulate, and everyone is going to be lifted up. And so what I'm going to talk about today is how we need to revolutionize our view of the solution, because voting with our forks is part of the problem. And we can't expect to solve an inequality of information, an inequality of power, and an inequality of access with a solution that's based on the idea that the more money you have in your grocery budget gives you more votes. Because if we sort of buy into this paradigm of perpetuity and believe that the majority of our power in the food system is with our dollars, then we're just going to support this problem and the inequalities will exist forever. And also, by focusing on what we buy, it divides us into two groups. So the good consumers, those of us that say, I haven't eaten at McDonald's for 10 years, or I only eat ethically raised meat, or I only eat organic spinach. With bad consumers, those of us that say, hey, I had Kraft dinner for lunch yesterday for the 5th time in a row, or, oh, I'm a working mom, so I went to McDonald's and got some value dollar items for my kids because I was coming home from work and now I'm going to a night class. And it pits those two groups against each other. And especially in Edmonton, I find that those good consumers, that's what we label as the food community here. Those are the people that use the #YegFood hashtag. Those are the people that can feel self-righteous about the types of food that we eat and feel that we're part of the solution when this solution completely excludes the people that are feeling the inequalities the most. And it also, because we're making the suggestion that by having the most power in your dollar, we're saying that those people who can afford to be good consumers can't be part of the change. And worse than all of this, it boils us all down, good consumers, bad consumers, to just that, consumers. Those processing companies that we disagree with, they want us to be that. They want us to identify as consumers because that's what's going to keep the power in those hands. So the good news today is that we are not consumers, we're citizens. And as citizens, we vote with our ballots, we don't vote with our wallets. As citizens, we have political agency and have relationships with other people that make us involved in our community. And we're people with talents and passions and, really importantly, with values that completely transcend our ability to shop and buy organic spinach. And also, we're creative people, especially you guys. We're creative people with the power to revolutionize our food system in Edmonton without spending a single dollar. So what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the talk today is how we're going to reclaim our identity as food system, or food citizens in our city today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of talk about certain identities or relationships that a lot of us have. And I want you all to, if it talks about you, I want you to stand up and sort of reclaim that as part of your own. And then I'll go through some really quick suggestions or stories that I have about people with those identities or people with those relationships that they've made big changes in our food system, or big changes in my life as someone who's been food insecure in the past. And so with that, we're going to start a revolution in Edmonton where we create a new food community that has more voices, more faces, and it doesn't matter if you are poor, it doesn't matter what class you're in, and it doesn't matter what race you're in. We're going to make a new YegFood community that absolutely doesn't have a membership fee. So, be prepared to stand up. And you don't have to stand up for the whole slide, but stand up, please. So, citizens are parents. So who here is a parent or wants to be a parent? Hooray! Reclaim your citizenship. So, as parents, you have one of the most important, there are significantly more parents than I thought there would be in this room. Excellent, thank you for coming. So as parents, you have some of the most power in the food system than anyone. I know that when I was growing up, I was in a single, like my mom was a single mom, she has 3 kids, and I was taught at an early age that pasta with tomato sauce and spinach is super cheap and it's super healthy. And so I was able to take that throughout my entire life and own that and use it. And so by teaching your kids and your kids' friends how to cook ridiculously cheap meals, even if you aren't food insecure yourself, those are beads of knowledge that they're going to take throughout their entire life. They're going to disseminate with their friends as they grow up. And then maybe when they're a university student, they're going to pick the whole wheat pasta with spinach as opposed to the craft dinner, even though it'll cost the same thing. So, and you can sit down. You can also implement an idea of community and volunteerism in your children at an early age by volunteering with them at food crisis organizations. And these can be as extensive as the food bank, or you can go to a community kitchen in your church or at a community center and have your kid be part of serving people, have your kid be part of cooking meals for other people, to show them that eating food in Edmonton is not a solitary act. It's not just something that we do with our families, it's not just something that we do with our friends, it's something that we do as a community. And if we have our children sort of involved in that from an early age, they're going to take that, and then the next generation of YEG food people are going to be more inclusive than we already are today. And then also, I remember growing up, my best friend, her mom, like they were relatively well off, and her mom would always pack extra things for me in my friend's lunch. And so on the days when I had like a sleeve of crackers with some cheese for lunch, it was really great because then she always had like an extra apple, and it was a way for me to sort of get extra food, get extra fruit and vegetables in my diet without feeling any shame, without my mom having to feel stressed out about it. And that was really, really impactful in my life, and it's something that I look back on and thank that parent for. So if you, in talking with other parents or talking with other kids, have a feeling that one of your children's friends are food insecure, just throw in some extra healthy vegetables for them at lunch, and then encourage your kid to share that food. Encourage trading on the lunch or the playground. I think that that's a great way to sort of create a food community in our elementary schools and junior high schools. So citizens are also gardeners. How many people are gardeners here? Stand up. Oh, even more gardeners and parents. I am also a gardener, but I'm also standing up. So you guys can sit. So, thank you. So if you are food insecure, planting a garden is something that can seem rather daunting, but it can be super easy, and it can also be ugly. I think that with sort of the age of Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter and whatever, we sort of all have this idea that our gardens have to be beautiful things. But gardens can be made from ice cream pails, gardens can be made from pots, gardens can be made from anything, and you can get free seeds from nearly everywhere. If you talk to most gardeners, what we tend to do is buy like a ton of seeds because we're overzealous in the spring, and then we don't plant them, and then they sit in the bag, and we don't use them, and then they go bad, and they'll never germinate again. So if you have friends that are gardeners, just ask them for free seeds. The food bank also hands out free seeds, so that's an easy way to access seeds. And if you have extra seeds, if you're like me and you buy way too many and your partner doesn't like you for it, no more plants, then put it on Facebook. Put a call out for people to come take your extra seeds, come take your extra plants, because that's a really easy way to make food security and make the extra things that we like getting from gardening as well available to everyone. And if you are food secure and you have a little bit of extra room in your plot or in your garden, the Edmonton Food Bank actually has a really, really great program that I love called the Plant Grow Grow program. And so this is an opportunity where you can grow some produce for the food bank and then donate it as a fresh item at a bunch of collection points throughout the city in the fall, including the Southwest Edmonton Farmers Market. So, just saying. Yeah, and that's a really easy way to make sure that one of those 15,000 people that access the food bank every month get that item of fresh produce that's going to make their hamper that much more welcoming for them. And then finally, this is something that I, as a community gardener in downtown Edmonton, am like become a piece with, is that we need to plant easy to steal foods. Last year in my community garden, I was infuriated because all of my tomatoes were stolen, all of my strawberries were stolen. Someone came into my garden and like cut my Swiss chard with scissors, which was, but so then I completely like let my garden die. I was done with it. I was like, oh. But if you think about it, I garden mostly for the fun of it. I garden mostly to like, oh, get some salad greens, so nice, or to feel good about the fact that my like tiny plot looks pretty. And so if someone can walk through your garden or walk in your back alley and steal raspberries and have a fresh intake of food that's locally grown, presumably organic, that's free for them. And that's something so simple that you can do if you just have a little bit more of a Zen attitude towards garden theft. It's a really it'll make you feel so much better. Not only are you still going to have a beautiful garden, because typically people do it without a trace, you're going to be contributing to food insecurity in your city. And it's going to be an easy way to sort of reclaim your identity as someone other than a consumer. And also, I just remember, like, growing up, how kids that I grew up with would have, like, routes planned out in the summer as to, like, the walks that they could go on with their dogs to just steal raspberries the whole time. And that's awesome. You're giving them an after-school snack of raspberries. Like, that's a significant, cool thing that you can do. So, citizens are also neighbors. So how many of us don't live, like, on our own in the middle of nowhere? How many of us have neighbors? Please stand up. Cool. So it looks like almost all of us reclaim this part of our identity. So you can sit down. And so, as neighbors, if you live in a house and have a garden, you can share yard work and garden bounties with your neighbors. So maybe then you don't have to water every day. You don't have to plant all of these different varieties of food. You can just plant the things that you're good at growing, have your neighbor help, and then at the end of the summer you can share double your bounty, or at least the variety of your bounty. And then more significantly, especially for those, I know a lot of us are young, and I guess I just want to presume that everyone's as poor as I am, but a lot of us rent. And so food insecurity is highly correlated with people who rent apartments. And so, as well as frequent moves. So doing the really tacky thing of bringing your new neighbor a casserole with a dessert can actually really be an impactful way to help them in a time where they're most likely to be food insecure, as well as sort of foster those connections in our community that we need to reclaim if we want to revolutionize our food system. So, how many of us are citizen drivers or citizen people with cars? I know a lot of people cycle here, but I know that there's some of us more on there than others. Cool. All right. So you guys can sit. So that's another thing that we can reclaim to use for the food system that has little to do with food in and of itself. But lack of transportation, especially in Edmonton and especially in our suburbs, and even more so among seniors, is a huge indicator of food insecurity. And so there's actually an organization in Edmonton called the Seniors Assistant Transportation Society of Greater Edmonton, where you can volunteer and you just drive a senior to the grocery store, help them shop, and bring them home. And that can be a huge difference in their lives when they're no longer able to drive, when they're no longer to walk to the bus stop to get onto the bus. And it can be a really significant way that you, with just a little bit of money in gas money, are able to make a huge change in those people's lives. And also, for those of us with cars, we all know people who don't have cars. And so next time you're going on a bulk shopping trip, you're going to Costco, or you're going to Bulk Barn, or you're going to Superstore to buy a bunch of canned beans, all of those sorts of things, put a call out on your Facebook, put a call out on your Twitter to invite your friends without cars to be part of that with you. Because I know a lot of us, especially students who don't drive, we walk to the grocery store and we take what we can carry. We can't get to Costco. And so that makes it so that we're paying more money for these bulk items that everyone else is saving money on who have a car. And so citizens are also visual artists and designers. How many of us are part of that field? How many want to reclaim that identity today? Awesome. Cool. So you guys can sit down. So the fun fact is that farmers grow food. People who work in food crisis organizations get food out to people who need it. And researchers do research and then write articles for academic journals that aren't really publicly available. So as visual artists and designers, if you make that sort of first step and reach out to farmers, reach out to food organizations, and reach out to researchers who are doing work in food at the University of Alberta, and not even just on a volunteer basis. Like, you don't have to sell yourself short, but just putting that seed that this is an opportunity for them to get that knowledge out there, to help them market what they're doing, and also to make sort of research and academic knowledge publicly consumable to everyone. You can help address that inequality of knowledge in our food system that is so pervasive, especially in academia. And so the background on this slide was from Hannah Rosengren. And so the whole thing, I had to cut it, so I kind of feel bad. But the whole thing is about things that you can plant in your garden to help save bee populations. So these are things that gardeners have known forever, these are things that horticulturalists have known forever, and these are things that researchers and biologists have known forever. But the information wasn't widely out there until people like her, who create visually appealing, publicly consumable little infographics and things like that, to make it well known. And so now, like, this has been all over the internet. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with it. And it's with very powerful information that allows people to take more of a control over the food that they eat, more of a control over the environmental degradation that's happening as a result of agriculture. And then also, poor starving artist is sort of a trope that exists, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And so, once you get past that point, and once you are sort of a successful artist that's making money and doing well, and you're able to buy food, make sure that you're reaching out to those who are younger than you in your field, those who are part of marginalized groups, and mentor them. Create more of a system of mentorship in your community to make sure that they also are able to create a living off of what they're doing. Because that's going to help sort of foster more food security within your own community as creative people. So, citizens are also food hoarders and cooks. I feel like, so is anyone a food hoarder? Does anyone buy too many groceries and don't know what to do with them? And does anyone like to cook? Is really good at it and wants to tell everyone all of their cool recipes? Alright, cool. I sort of thought that one would only be identifying, but great. So, Owen from Prairie Mill was talking to me about having this really great idea about having a food sharing party where all these food hoarders, so Owen would obviously have a bunch of bread, but you go and you have a party, everyone brings all of their excess food and then you trade it. And so that's a really easy way to, A, sort of take advantage of your bulk shopping and save money there, but then increase the variety in your pantry, in your friends' pantries as well. And then also for all of us who have extra groceries and or love to cook, there are tons of community kitchens in Edmonton that are looking for people to sort of step in as a guest instructor and teach people about their favorite recipes and teach people how to make healthy foods. And I was talking to the food bank, and I think that there are over 60 community kitchens in Edmonton that are functioning right now. These are community-led groups of people who are marginalized, people that are food insecure, and they're learning how to cook, and they're learning how to do things on a shoestring budget. And so for us to be able to step in as people who buy organic spinach and who do all these great things and bring these groceries and come in and teach them how to cook, and that helps them in the long term create food security in their lives, sort of on their own terms. And then finally, as citizens, we're voters. So who here has ever cast a ballot? We made Shane people that don't stand up, so. Cool, okay, excellent. So we need to reclaim our identity as citizen voters in our food industry or in our food system, because while we can do all of these things and while even shopping for the correct things does help, these inequalities that I talked about at the beginning are systemic and they're heavily influenced by government policy. And so we need to vote for policies and parties that support things like income support to low-income households, and free childcare and school meals, because childcare is a significant cost, especially in those single mother households that are more likely to be food insecure. We need to support affordable transportation, especially in our suburbs, and routes directly to grocery stores. And we also need to support policies that promote capacity building and employability for marginalized groups, because that's really the most significant way that we as a society can help them get sort of food secure on their own terms due to that increased income and an increased ability to make decisions in their own lives. And so, to conclude, we have a lot of issues in our food system, and especially in Edmonton. I think, as sort of someone who sold vegetables at River Gardens, the seed was planted when I was at City Market, and I have a bunch of wonderful customers that come to me every week, and they're great and they're wonderful, but they're primarily affluent people. And so you see affluent people shopping on the insides. And then on the outskirts of the market, you see marginalized groups who clearly could use the food that we're selling there. And so we need to be part of the change that, without villainizing the farmers that are doing that, because the prices have to be what they are, given the amount of work that goes into harvesting those potatoes and washing them. We need to educate ourselves on these food issues and then use our voices, our relationships, and our talents to completely revolutionize the food system and food community in our city. We need to listen to the lived experiences of those who are experiencing food insecurity and listen to the solutions that they suggest to us, and basically do what they ask in order to make this city more equitable for everyone. And then finally, we need to never let anyone tell us that the primary power that we have to create change in our food system lies in our wallet. And that's everything. Thank you.